Is Chisa's kit underwhelming? Let's talk about it. My name is Juice, and let's get into it. So, not too long ago, Kuro recently officially revealed Chisa on the 2.8 livestream, so now we have a rough idea of what she does as per Kuro's official reveal. Now, we don't have exact details at the minute, but this does still beg the question of, is the kit that we are aware of somewhat underwhelming? What do I mean by this? Well, Chisa's quite a popular character, so a lot of eyes are on her at the minute, and I think a lot of people were curious as to what exactly she was going to end up doing, and would she be efficient at doing whatever it is that she would specialize in. Well, it seems like her pull value at the minute doesn't actually seem that high in relation to how popular she is. Now, obviously she's not a bad character, I don't want to outright say that she has no use cases whatsoever because she does, but this isn't exactly the situation that I was expecting Chisa in particular to be in. And I don't think it would be unfair to say that her kit is surprisingly not that strong. Like, she is very skippable, to be honest. You really don't need her under many different circumstances. Yes, there are some specific circumstances in which you can get her, and she does indeed have some redeeming qualities. However, for the most part, her kit ended up feeling a little bit, not exactly on the super strong side. Now, I will say that, in a sense, I suppose it is for the sake of balance, because seeing as she is going to be a third slot teammate for negative status characters who are already quite strong, perhaps Kuro didn't really want to give them too much of a boost. Giving Cardathea a significant damage boost probably would not have been a good idea. Fine, I get that. And they're also putting lots of stock into the fact that her value comes in the form of her being able to work with any negative status character. She's not restricted to just one, so for a negative status unit, she's able to be free of one of the main things that people generally dislike about them, that being how rigid they are and how they really want to play in one specific team. Chisa's able to hop between them. So if you frequently play these types of teams on your account, well then there you go, Chisa's going to be able to help you out there. But I wouldn't be bringing this up if I wasn't just a little bit concerned about her value. Like, we're getting a little bit close to a Roshia situation here. Not completely, Roshia is just a whole other level of bad, but the level of you don't really need Chisa is kind of almost the same. That in of itself sounds like a ridiculous statement, so let me break down what I mean. What I mean is that it's a redundant 5-star pull that could easily be replaced with plenty of other cheaper options that are at your disposal that are likely going to be able to fill the same slot just fine, if not even better, if not even just being a little bit worse. That's what I mean when I say that it's similar to a Roshia situation. I don't want to outright say that it is one, but it is seeming to be close to one. Because while Chisa isn't necessarily bad, and I do believe that she's going to have her value, she doesn't look like she's actually that high value of a pull. And I just want to warn right now, definitely consider whether you actually want to make this investment or not. Negative status teams are already so expensive as is, and to be honest, I feel like instead of pulling Chisa, you could just pull a sequence on your negative status DPS, and that's going to have more of an impact on your negative status team. It's to a point where I honestly don't think Chisa can be recommended to a large majority of players. Now, yes, if you do main 2 negative status teams and you really need to free up your rover, or you really need to free up your shorekeeper for another team, then fine, yes, Chisa does end up working out. But all around, I still feel like you're going to be able to find sufficient enough replacements for your third slot. Even if you don't have Chisa, you have enough options at your disposal. Now, in fairness, this could just be preparation for the next upcoming region. Maybe she's going to become significantly better whenever the new region drops. Fine. But as we all know, generally speaking, Wuthering Waves always reruns necessary supports whenever it is their time. Phoebe's getting a run alongside Chisa after all, right after Zani is having her own rerun banner. They always time these things quite well. So, with that in mind, if Chisa does ever get a significant buff or she does get a new best in slot team, Kuro is just going to rerun her whenever she ends up being relevant. So I wouldn't say that just because she has some potential in the future means that you should be getting her now, or that she's going to have any extra value right now. As it currently stands, she's really good for the existing negative status teams, and while it does definitely make sense that she's going to be good for future negative status teams, who's to say that it's once again not just going to be the same situation where we can just replace the third slot with somebody else? Now, obviously that's thinking far too ahead, and like I already said, if she does ever end up being that good for a specific team, Kuro Games is just going to rerun her then. Not to mention that because Chisa is very popular, I don't think that they're not going to give Chisa any attention beyond this point. After all, she's quite well liked, and I think it would make sense that if she feels a bit undertuned to people, well then they're going to try and help her out a little bit. But it's likely that we're going to have to wait a little bit before we see that happen, considering how negative status teams work, with first getting their DPS or applicant, and then getting the other piece of the puzzle afterwards. So it's going to be quite some time before we get some more complete negative status teams, because that constitutes quite a few character releases. But yes, there is obviously the potential for Chisa to get more teams in the future, but as it currently stands, her value's just not that impressive. Now, the situation in which I can see somebody having her is if they do have a ton of negative status teams and they are genuinely running out of third slot teammates to run. But considering how rigid those teams are, I just don't think that a majority of people are going to have multiple negative status teams on their account. Maybe you have both the Spectrofrazzle and Erosion teams, that is likely, but I don't think that absolutely everybody is going to have every single negative status team going forward. So this is just such a niche issue, if you can even call it an issue at all, because we have so many viable substitutes. Another thing is that we're also getting Boiling, and we don't know if this is just a one-off, but if going into 3.x we end up getting more 4-star characters, that also opens up the opportunity for us to get even more viable third slot teammates that may even potentially be able to replace Chisa. Now that's a bit of an extreme statement because Kuro Games isn't really known for making plenty of 4-star characters. If they do, that would be nice, but let's not expect it. However, I'm just presenting another possible angle that could be taken here. Okay though, let's say that you're a high investment player. She's a 5-star character, she's gonna have good sequences likely, is it gonna be worth it then? I'm gonna have to say no, because even if her sequences do end up being really good, it's just always gonna be better to get sequences for your negative status main DPS. Even if you have the corals, there is basically always going to be somewhere else that you're gonna be able to invest those corals, and if you're a whale, well, if you've literally S6'd everybody else in your negative status team and you wouldn't want to invest those sequences anywhere else, then fine, Chisa sequences will be worth it, but at that point you're just not going to need the Chisa sequences. I don't think the actual kit idea was bad. I think the idea of a universal negative status teammate, while being somewhat niche, was not horrible. It's an archetype that exists, it's here to stay, and Kuro is likely going to continue making it. And it seems like they're open to making 4 stars again, so even though this is huge copium on my end and is probably never going to be realized, who knows, maybe we will start getting more budget options for negative status teams. Maybe, who knows. But in any case, they're here to stay, so making a character like Chisa isn't really a bad idea. But if she's just not really up to snuff, and you can't really justify using her over the competition, then there's not really much of a point. She's an absolutely amazing character in terms of visuals, she's really cool, I like her design a lot, but the value proposition just isn't really there at the minute. She has some redeeming qualities, just not many, and if we do end up getting a good Havoc Bane character sometime in the future that's able to utilize her, well then okay, there we go, we've got something going for her, but that's likely not going to be for a long time, and if that does end up happening, well, once again, she's just going to be rerun during that time. I do think that Kuro underbaked her kit a little bit here. Now, maybe she's going to come out, she's going to end up exceeding my expectations, and I'll be all wrong about this. But I'm just saying, be very wary of her pull value, be very wary of deciding to get her, because even if you're a really high investment Cardathea or high investment Zani player, I do think there are better places that you could spend your astrites, and there is a new region coming up. We haven't seen any of the new designs yet, so keep in mind that Kuro could reveal one of those and you're going to be absolutely mesmerized by one of them, and maybe you're going to regret going for this character that wasn't really that much of an upgrade in the first place. Now, her gameplay looks really cool, she looks really impressive, and I'm sure that if you really like Chisa, she is still going to do fine for you. I just wouldn't expect her to do anything impressive, and I did just want to say, I do think she looks a little bit underwhelming. I'm just being completely honest here. For a character as popular as this, I was expecting a bit of a stronger character. Now, once again, it's fine that she's not completely game-breaking. Not every character has to be this busted unit, and also just because a character is popular doesn't necessarily mean that they need to be busted. After all, Kuro Games knows how to balance their game, they know what to do. That's fine. But I do think it's a little concerning if a character is near Roshia levels of pull value. She has good teams to work in, it's just the replacements are abundant, and not to mention literally free with the Rovers. And that's another really big problem here. Roshia had the exact same situation with Camellia back whenever Roshia first released. You could have just used Sanhua instead with your Camellia, and while she does have Furlova teams now, well, Cho Yuen is also a thing, and a much better thing for Furlova at that. I'm not sure why Kuro has done this again, as I feel like if you're gonna make a premium unit for a premium team, they should be an upgrade by at least a decent enough margin over the free choice. In a sense, it's nice because it means that you can definitely save. I just think it's a shame for Chisa fans in particular. She could end up really impressing, and maybe she's going to have some crazy tech whenever she comes out. After all, there's always people that find out how to do some very interesting things with characters whenever they release. So obviously, it is a bit of a wait-and-see situation. It always is with these characters. We could only really make assumptions right now, and I know that a lot of people are still going to be pulling just because she has a fantastic aesthetic design, which is completely understandable. However, I did just want to say I do think her kit looks a little bit concerning, mostly because she is so replaceable with such cheap options and general options like Shorekeeper, and that is a little bit worrying. So, just keep that in mind. Hopefully this video was able to tell you why Chisa's kit is underwhelming. This has been Juice, signing out. And you know what? She saves a cat in her gacha art, so at least there's that going for her.